You know, like the IRS sends you these envelopes. Anytime you get a thick envelope from the IRS, that's not good.
There is no good envelope from the IRS.
No. About the same time, I got a call from an IRS agent, and his last name was Friend, by the way. And nice guy, super nice guy. But he says, Joe, you need to come into my office, like today. And I go there, and you go through like tons of security. You get into this room. He says, Joe, do you realize? And I'm in there shaking, trying not to cry. It's like, do you realize how close you are to jail? I could send you to jail. I could take away your house, kick your wife and kids out on the street, make you homeless, take everything you own. You've got to get this taken care of and fixed. And I was like, okay, I need help.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond a Million. Today we're speaking with Joe McCall, a successful marketer and investor in the real estate space. Joe made some mistakes with taxes and the IRS, which almost sent him to jail. So he's got some great advice for anyone dealing with IRS issues, which, let's face it, is a lot of us. You'll learn real estate investing tactics that apply to seasoned and successful entrepreneurs, and also for people that are looking to get started but don't know where to begin. Plus, Joe reveals some of his high-level marketing strategies that have allowed him to sell over $15 million worth of real estate education courses online. If you sell anything online, whether it's physical products, a service, or courses, this episode is for you. Let's dive in.
Sweet. Joe McCall.
Hey.
Thanks for hanging out, man.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here, Brad.
I am always looking for an excuse to not sit in the room at a conference. And we found one.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yep. It took manipulating some things to find a space to record, but we did it.
Yeah.
So we are at the Family Mastermind in Tampa,
yeah,
which we've both been a part of for a long time.
Yeah.
It is honestly, I think it's not only the biggest, but the most curated group of real estate information educators on the planet.
Yeah. A lot of software guys, a lot of service guys. It's a great group.
It's a great group, and the real estate segment, obviously Easy Pay Direct is super heavy in the real estate education segment, but the marketing in the group is astounding.
Yeah.
It's a very aggressive, marketing-focused group of entrepreneurs. And I wanted to talk to you about that because I know that it's something that you lean into very heavily and are very good at. But before we do, why don't you give me a little background on Joe McCall?
Yeah. Man, we're Easy Pay Direct customers. Love the business. Love what you guys do. You've been doing this industry. You've been one of the industry leaders for a long, long time. So it's an honor to be here. So I got started in real estate in 2006, full-time in 2009. I was working as a civil engineer, building power plants, and got tired of the corporate job working in my cubic hell. And started learning lease. Well, I started doing a bunch of different kinds of deals, but I called myself a professional student for 3 years because I just overanalyzed everything. I made a lot of bad mistakes. But at least I was taking some action. But it wasn't until my back was really against the wall, the market crashed, and all of these properties that I bought with stupid debt, I had a lot of foreclosures and short sales, and my back was against the wall. I was hemorrhaging cash, and it wasn't the market's fault. It was this guy's fault. I just made a lot of bad mistakes. But I started doing lease options, and I started flipping lease options. I called it wholesaling lease options, or you can call them lease option assignments. And I was doing enough of those. I was making more money doing that part-time than I was in my full-time job. And I was making good money. In 2009, I was making 75, 80 grand a year. Mm-hmm. But I didn't like what I was doing. So I didn't like the fact, I felt like it was more risky to keep my job than to quit my job and to start my own business. So I remember very early on listening to gurus and coaches and people teaching this real estate stuff and thinking, I love what they're doing. I want to be able to help other people like they're helping me now. But one of the guys said, we are not in the real estate investing business, we're in the marketing business. And I thought that just really resonated with me because I realized as I was doing more and more deals that I'm not in the real estate business, the house business, the lease options business, the wholesaling business, now vacant land business. I'm in the marketing business. And now that also applies to whatever business you're doing. And one of the other things he said is you should always try to get your marketing done for you in spite of you. And so I would go through these cycles up and down of like doing a bunch of marketing, getting some deals, and then stopping the marketing because I had so many leads coming in. And then I would flip them and then sell them and make some money and then turn around 2 months later and my pipeline is empty. I don't have any leads. And so I learned you've got to keep that marketing engine going all the time. And if you can't do it, then you need to get somebody else to do it for you. So get it done for you in spite of you. Marketing is the most important. So then as I was thinking, I started doing deals, quit my job, and I started getting invitations to speak at different real estate clubs, on different other boot camps and workshops. And so I thought, I want to teach people how to do this strategy called wholesaling lease options. And so I started studying other people that were doing something similar. And I saw one thing in common with all of the successful publishers and info marketers is they were continually marketing. And they were always creating really great, valuable content and then marketing their products and services inside that content. So I realized it's the same thing in a different, vertical. Mm-hmm. So I've just always been a real big fan of marketing, whether you're doing deals or whether you're selling and publishing information or coaching services or products. You could have a great product, the best product in the world, but if you don't know how to market it and how to get leads in, nobody's going to know about it.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I think, the idea of the pipeline drying up, that is the most common sales problem that exists for great salespeople.
Oh, yeah.
So the worst salesperson you can have on your team is the one that is amazing and then celebrates after he wins or she wins and stops soliciting, right? They stop the lead gen because they're like, victory, and then that's it. And I am very, very, very closely tied to many people like this. Yeah, they take, and entrepreneurs do this all the time, right? They take the victory, they go do a victory lap and just abandon the business in the meantime. And obviously the same thing applies to marketing. So, okay, so 2009, I have to know because we're sitting in a real estate education conference with these, it's every guru that exists in the real estate and product space, right? Everybody back from Robert Allen is downstairs to
Ron LeGrand, Ted Williams, is that
Kiyosaki,
Lou Brown,
Brown, Dolph
DeRoos,
crazy
giants. These guys are awesome.
Yeah, this is Ian, Pace Morby, Jamil, the people that are dominating now. But who did you, when you said in 08, 09, you were listening to the gurus, who were you listening to then? Who caught your attention then? And did you follow a specific path to get off the ground then?
Well, it's funny because you talk about all the people, the OGs that are there, or the GOATs, and a lot of them aren't around anymore, And I get inspired by that because I don't want to be that guy who's not around in 20 years. Like I want to be like the Ron LeGrands, a little nicer. But I want to be the Ron LeGrands, in my 70s here at these events. And still doing, because I just love the education business. I love mentoring and coaching and helping people and seeing them succeed. That's a big passion of mine, But one of the people that I looked up to back then, her name was Wendy Patton. And she taught lease options, and this is interesting because you could have considered us competitors. I was teaching kind of a niche within a niche of lease options, and she was teaching the much broader topic of lease options. And one of our mutual friends, Sean McCloskey, told me, you have something that you need to share to the world, but you can't just approach these other people and say, hey, can I have your stage? Can I sell to your audience? So he told me something that I've done countless times ever since. I approach other people with the audiences that I want. And I'll ask them, how can I add value to your list? Can I do a podcast? Can I do a video for you guys? Can I teach them your list, everything that I'm doing for free? And I won't sell anything. So I approached Wendy through mutual friends and I said, I'd love to talk to your people about what we do because I think it'll be really helpful for them. And so she got me, I remember so clearly, I just quit my job maybe 6 months ago, and I was doing a lot of these deals, and I wanted to teach people. So she asked me, can we just do a 30-minute phone call and recording about what it is that you're doing? I said, that'd be great. And so I just started teaching, and that 30-minute call turned into 2 hours. And it was such a good recording, she actually took the recording and added it into her next course as one of the modules in her. No, it wasn't even a module. It was a brand new course. So I taught my competition everything that I'm doing that I wanted to include in my own program, but I just taught her how I'm doing it. And so she then turned around and sold that course, didn't give me any money from that. But that's what I told her, I said, I want you to take this stuff that I'm doing and just sell it to your list. I don't need anything from it. And then I just started trying to over-deliver on the value to her audience. And then she invited me to her boot camp. And then she did something that I find out later was really difficult for her to do. She let me sell my course at her boot camp. And turns out her students loved me, and they bought everything I didn't have everything. I had one course, and a lot of them bought my course, and her students weren't like buying less of her stuff because I was also there.
Right.
And so she realized, oh, this is amazing, because her students are, and she realized this, and I have come to realize this too, they're not all just buying one person's program. They're buying many people's programs, learning as many different aspects, and we all have different angles and stuff. So I kind of really tried to go into it with a go-giver mentality. And then I started approaching other people who had large audiences. It's similar to the Dream 100 concept, if you hear people talk about that. And I just tried to approach them with, like, how can I deliver some real value to your audience that I think will complement what you're doing well, and I'm not asking for anything in return.
So a couple things there. One, Dream 100 is a Chet Holmes concept, which is, Chet is deceased. Ted Miller was his partner in that, who's also been on the show. Cool. And then they partnered with Tony Robbins to create Business Mastery, for those that don't know. But the Dream 100 concept is target your Dream 100 clients relentlessly, right? So forget about going broad. Look at the narrow 100 clients that would have the biggest impact, and strategically approach them as many times as you need to strategically to get those clients.
Not with what's in it for me, but how can I help you grow your audience? How can I help you make more money?
So this is the differentiator, and that's an interesting thing for a new person to focus on. Generally speaking, new entrepreneurs do not approach things that way, even if they want to, even if they know that they should, even if they're being taught and guided to do it, because of scarcity and because of the situation that they're in. It's hard to put aside monetization and your lifestyle, potentially, and what you perceive to be your well-being for free.
Oh yeah, it's scary, because you're worried, like, well, they're going to take this information and sell it on their own. But it's a whole law of reciprocity. And I'm not actually even doing it to hopefully them to promote me or whatever. I'm really genuinely like, I just want to deliver a ton of value to your audience.
Where did you get that concept from jump? Because I think that once you are established and once you have money, it's easier to approach things that way, because there's less scarcity mentality. Certainly once you're in a place where you could functionally retire at any moment and you're doing it for growth, gain, exposure, to help other people, etc., it's easier to operate from that lens. But when you're brand new, who planted the seed?
It was Sean McCloskey. At the time, he was kind of my coach, and
also a client. Shameless EPD.
That's
plug.
That's right. But so it's like I just listened to him, because I knew I saw these people that I wanted to hang out with, and I knew I only had a little bit to give to them, but the little bit I did have, I thought was really, really valuable to their audience, and I wanted to give it away for free so it would make them look better.
I love that.
And just naturally, when you do that, when you try to make other people look better, you also are looking better in their eyes. And then what they do is they're like, hey, this guy Joe's pretty cool, and this happened like crazy. You know what? I know who else would like you to be on their stage. And they started referring me to other people. I started traveling to their stages, their boot camps, workshops, started doing a lot of webinars. And I just really honed in on my craft of of teaching and selling, and started having good results. And then after a webinar, when I'd sell something, I would ask them, if you thought it went well, would you know anybody else who might be interested in this? And so that's really how I kind of grew is, hey, Joe's a nice guy. He's a go-giver. He gives a ton of really good, valuable, free information. He's not like these other shysters that are just trying to hawk their stuff. And he also sells really well. So he'll deliver a lot of value and he'll bring in a lot of money to your event or whatever.
Because you were, so the model here in real estate education, as you're presenting it, it sounds like, is you were going to events, speaking on stages, and selling a product and splitting the revenue of the product.
Yeah. But when I sell it, it's not like your typical sales pitch.
Teaching with the CTA.
I teach a lot. I deliver a lot of value.
Love it.
And then the call to action is, hey, do you want my help? I got this program, and we'll do it with you, do it for you. We'll coach you through the process. So I feel like I over-deliver on the value in a lot of ways, but I also I teach a lot of there's a whole science behind this, but I teach a lot of the what when I'm teaching live, but not the specific hows. So if they want the hows, I just don't have time in an hour and a half presentation to teach them all of that. I might say something like, hey, you know what, there's 5 really good ways to do marketing and find sellers. I only have a little bit of time here. I'm going to teach you the best way right now. And I go deep in that one best way, but I'm delivering a lot of value, but I'm also letting them know there's some other things here that you need to learn. This is really important, but these other 3 or 4 things are just as important, and you need to know all of them if you want to have success. So then I move on to the next step, and I'm always planting those seeds of like, I'm giving you my best stuff right now, but if you want all of it, if you think this stuff is really good, think how much better this program is going to be that I sell. And it's more than just a course that I sell too. It's hand-holding. I'm going to help you implement this stuff. I'm always thinking about when I'm selling something is why would they say no? What are their biggest objections? And so that becomes my offer. That becomes my offer is like, well, they're going to say, I can't do what Joe's doing because, he's such a good-looking guy. And so I'm just, or they're going to say, I can't do what Joe's doing because
we're on video. You can't pull that off.
No. I can't do what Joe does because I don't have the money to buy those deals. So one of the bonuses of my program is going to be, I've got the private money to lend you money on your deals if you want to work with me. Maybe an objection is, I'm not computer tech savvy. I don't know how to set up all that stuff. So part of my offer is we'll set it up for you. So there's a lot of things I'm always thinking about, like why would they say no? And that becomes then part of my offer. So I'm delivering a lot of value on other people's platforms, borrowing other people's audiences, borrowing their influence, right? Delivering a ton of value, always uplifting and I don't want to say magnifying, but like, shining the spotlight on the person who invited me there. It works.
Well, I like the idea of using the objections to create the offer.
Oh, it's huge.
One of the things that I think people fail to do that just at large. And I think they fail to do it from a marketing perspective as well as from a sales perspective. So I grew up in sales, in aggressive sales. And one of the things that I was left with after thousands and thousands of sales presentations is frequently, if you are handling an objection, you failed to handle the objection. Meaning that you need to seed the objection before it ever comes up.
You want to know the best way to do that?
Please.
All right, this is killer. And I learned this. I have to give credit where credit is due. There's a guy named O Dowd. You got to get him on this show.
Love it.
He's really, really smart. One of the smartest marketers I've ever seen. He spent a lot of time one-on-one with Gary Halbert before he passed away.
Okay.
Gary Halbert would take in interns and live in his house with him.
What?
Yeah, and Caleb O'Dowd was like his intern for a couple years.
I didn't know that. Dude, that's wild.
Yeah.
I had no idea that he did that. So Halbert is the grandfather of direct marketing for those that don't know.
Right. So
wild.
I'm a constant student. Right? I'm always like, I got to learn what the other people are doing. So Caleb O'Dowd is one of those guys where I just want to see what he's doing. I watch what he's doing. I've signed up for all of his programs, and the guy's really, really smart. One of the things he does on his webinars, he teaches everything how to do it step by step, right? And then he's like, if you think this is easy, No. This is how he kind of positions, and this is how he transitions into his pitch. So you may say, and I'll use it from my perspective. You may say, hey, Joe, this sounds amazing. Is it really that easy? And I'm going to say, no, it's not. Actually, it's really hard, because here are 5 roadblocks that you're going to face if you go out and you try to do this right now on your own. All right. Number 1 is how do you know you're going to, if you don't pick the right markets, for in my course, I'm teaching land. Mm-hmm. If you don't pick the right counties, then you're going to be wasting a ton of time and energy and money. You're going to get really, really frustrated. So it's real important you pick the right markets. And then number 2, if you don't have the money to buy the deals. Number 3, I can't remember all 5 of them right now, but my roadblocks are the big objections that are already going on in their head right now. So I'm thinking when I was crafting my offer, what are their big objections in their head? I don't have the money. What if I pick the wrong market? What if I make a bad offer? What if I can't find a buyer for my deal? What if I have questions and I feel stuck? What am I going to do? And so those are the roadblocks I'm telling them they're going to have, so I'm kind of trying to enter into the conversation already going on in their head. And so then I give them the roadblocks, the obstacles that they're going to face. And guess what my offer is? It obliterates every single one of those objections that they have. And I said, remember, I told you that you're going to be worried about, you have to make sure you pick the right markets, okay? Well, after you go through the program, you can schedule a one-on-one call with me, and I'll review your markets with you. The other objection is, what if you make a bad offer? Well, every week I do a call with my students where we review your deals, and I'll look at your deals, and I'll show you what you should offer on those. And so each of those roadblocks are part of my offer. And then the bonuses that I offer are that still, if there's any lingering like objections or why would I not buy this, those bonuses resolve each of one of those things. And so everybody asks, like, well, as they're pitching something or something, why would somebody want to buy this? How can I convince somebody to buy this? A better question is, why would they say no to this? And then framing your offer and your bonuses, structuring them around why they would say no. It's asking a little deeper questions about their pain and the psychology of what's going on in their mind. And just, you've got to have a solution that helps them and solves their biggest problems. So that's why I sell really well on my webinars and when I speak.
That's great. I say this often, but I think about a life in terms of what's the absolute worst case, what's the absolute best case, and then plan for neither of them, because neither are likely to happen.
Yeah.
And then reel it in a little and say, what's the likely worst case and what's the likely best? That's where I need a plan. And there are all sorts of fringe objections that might come up. Those aren't relevant. The question is, what are the common ones that are going to come up? Mm-hmm. And I think that for me, I apply that to all sorts of things in life, business in general, any new initiative. But inside of sales and marketing, it's a great way to craft an offer. Mm-hmm.
And you got to talk to your audience. You got to talk to them. When they don't buy, we survey them. Why didn't you buy it? Usually it's money and time or something like that.
All right, so let's get to that. So let's back out. 2009, you got into the investing side of things.
Yeah.
What was the divergence between investing and deciding that you needed to educate? Where were you in terms of money or revenue? What was life like, and why did you make that choice?
Okay, so when I quit my job in 2009, I was making $75,000 a year in my corporate job. I was doing deals on the side part-time. I was doing maybe $120,000 a year. So $10,000 a month, 8 or 9, $10,000 a month on the deal side. So I realized this is working. I'm doing this part-time. How much more deals could I do if I was doing it full-time? And so I had actually made sure, my goal was to have 6 months of income in the bank. But I just couldn't do that because I was working too much at my job and not enough time doing deals. So I just said, all right, if I can do deals consistently 3 months in a row that exceeds my monthly income at my job, then I'm going to quit my job. And I did that. And so I started doing a lot of deals. And I kept on thinking, like, man, I want to help other people do this because it's awesome, and this actually really, really works. And I started seeing other people teach and making a lot of money teaching and doing education. So I started doing it because I got invitations to speak, and I started seeing the money that can be actually made from the education side of the business, the publishing side of the business. I also saw people doing podcasts, which were kind of new in 2009.
Yeah.
And there was a podcast at the time called the Internet Business Mastery podcast. And I forget the two guys' names that ran it. I just loved what they talked about, how you don't have to, because back then in those years, to sell, you had to go speak at real estate investment clubs, you had to go travel on a plane to places. And here was these new internet marketing guys that were coming up, the Jeff Walkers and then other guys in the real estate space that were selling through VSLs and webinars and stuff like that. So I saw that and I saw how much money they were making, and I thought, man, I could do that. Why can't I do that? So I created a program. In fact, I remember some of the people that I really admired and respected and looked up to, when I told them what I wanted to do, they told me, no, don't do it. There's too many people right now in the education space as it is, and we don't need another guru teaching lease options, which is what I wanted to teach. And it's not as easy as you think it is. And I remember just being devastated that they told me no, I shouldn't do it. But I just was doggedly persistent because I know I can do it, and I know I can do it better than what a lot of these other people are doing. So I was persistent with it. Well, then I actually started making a lot of money selling education and doing coaching. It was more fulfilling for me. I'd always kind of had this dream maybe of being a college professor or teaching. So I've got that itch in me of wanting to teach. So I thought, all right, well, I'm gonna teach. And I started making a lot more money doing the teaching education side than the actual deal side. So I still do deals to this day, 1 or 2 deals a month. It's a very part-time thing for me. And I have a team that kind of runs the operations for me. We do big deals, but I still only do 1 or 2 deals a month because I want to stay sharp and I want to know what's working and what's not. And I want to have that credibility that, hey, we're still doing deals. But here's the bottom line. The education business, publishing business, services, software, much easier to scale. It's much easier to get to your first $1 million selling services and consulting and education, doing that than it is doing deals. Now, doesn't mean everybody can do it. It's not for everybody. But if you're bent that way like I am, yeah, I can get to, if it's all right to say, I've sold over $15 million in education and consulting services, just my stuff. And I could have gotten there with just doing deals, but I would have had to have a much bigger team. I would have had to have a lot more infrastructure in place. You can get to $1 million a year easily with just 1 or 2 people.
In education. Yeah. Well, I think the story is hilarious that everybody was like, oh, it's too crowded. There's too much stuff going on.
Back then, they thought it was too crowded.
Dude.
It's way worse now.
The only truth that there was in that rant by them was that it's hard. And so there are challenges, right? Like any business model, you need to figure out the business model. You need to understand it. But the notion of things being too crowded, dude, it's what I've come to believe is that the only time there's any truth in that mentality is in the macro. Meaning that if your desire is to be behemoth, then you have to look at, let's say I decided I want to be the largest internet retailer on the planet. Okay, well, I have Amazon to contend with. Mm-hmm. But if that's not my goal, and I'm in my biggest company that I'm trying to make is 100 million, 500 million, $1 billion, I'm still inside of 1% of the ecosystem. So and that's the micro. So if you're working in the micro, it doesn't fucking matter how crowded it is. You can outwork, outmaneuver, recraft something to create your own space.
Well, and that's so huge because my space was a niche within a niche. The saying, the riches are in the niches. And I couldn't agree with that more because I knew if I tried to create a lease options course, there was 5 other people teaching that. And some of them are down there in the room right now, right? But I knew I had to differentiate myself. I had to have a unique hook, I had to have a big idea. I use this analogy a lot. There's weight loss, right? and everybody's teaching how to lose weight. You exercise more, you eat less calories or whatever. But somebody out there had this crazy idea to come up with a product on how to lose weight with drinking coffee with butter in it, right? And what that just exploded into the scene. Well, there's always those little things. It's a unique selling proposition. It's your little unique hook. Somebody who wants to create just another Me Too product, I try to steer them away from that. I say, no. There's got to be one thing you're doing that's different, a different angle, a different hook. And so for me, it was wholesaling lease options. You've got the big thing of houses, and then you have lease options, and then wholesaling lease options is a niche within a niche. And I decided to go deep into that. I decided I'm going to go an inch wide and a mile deep on one subject. Mm-hmm. And then what that did is it opened up so many more doors, because now I've got people who are teaching the lease options, would invite me to come share to their audience because it was different and unique. And I became known as not just another lease option guy. I became known as a wholesaling lease options guy. And the same thing with, now I'm doing more land deals, vacant land deals. And there's a lot of guys teaching vacant land. But my unique thing was I wanted a business so simple that I can get my teenagers to do these deals with me. And so I started doing deals with my teenagers. And now when I sell the program, it's like I needed something where you don't have to talk to sellers. You don't have to. I started casting stones at what everybody hates, talking to sellers and complicated systems or whatever. And I developed something really simple that you could do with your kids. And so I'm still teaching land investing, but it's just a unique angle and a unique take on it, where I can show these deals that that I'm doing with my kids, my students are doing with their kids. And that made me kind of stand out above the crowd of everybody who's already teaching land. And another angle I've taken is like doing it virtually, while traveling around Europe with my wife and 4 kids, or doing deals while traveling for 3 months in our RV. So setting up automated systems just makes it a little different. That's my kind of coffee and butter flavor on weight loss, but in the land investing space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Here's the other thing I like to say. Focus will make you rich.
Man, so yesterday I had a shirt on that said focus.
Yeah.
And that is the truth.
Oh, yeah.
I think the single largest enemy for all entrepreneurs today is distraction.
Yep.
And it happens in all sorts of different ways. There are all sorts of quote unquote productive distractions that you can have. Look, we all have a million things that we could, would, should, need to do in our business. But if you can narrow in and focus on the most important one and just keep doing it, you get much further ahead.
Yeah.
And it's boring.
Well, people are afraid of narrowing their focus.
Sure.
Because they're afraid, my audience is going to be much smaller.
And you say no to other opportunities when you do it. And that's the scary part, specifically when you have scarcity, specifically when you're early. And the conversation happens a lot with new entrepreneurs of who's your target market? And anytime, and you hear it all the time, people are like, oh, well, it's basically everybody.
No.
It's terrible.
That's a recipe for disaster.
It is a recipe for disaster. So I agree with you on a lot of counts. I will say that there are tons of examples of people that do just have Me Too products that destroy it. And that goes back to marketing being the core of it.
Yeah.
So there are people that have shitty products that are Me Too products that are not as good as the current leading provider, and somebody comes out and just crushes. And it's not as good of a product, but they do a better job marketing.
Yeah.
If you have the angle, it makes the marketing more credible,
easier,
etc. So I like trying to figure out the little one. So we're using you have used lots of different words to explain different types of real estate investing. People that are not involved in real estate investing don't know what the fuck subject to is. Don't know what lease options are. Don't know any of this stuff.
Right.
Can you break down, for the sake of definitions, et cetera, and because I think it's interesting, break down your model?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got, this is the great thing about real estate, is there's so many different avenues to make money. You can do houses, single family homes, you can do commercial, apartment buildings, multifamilies, you can do vacant land, dirt in the middle of nowhere. You can do a lot of different things. And then inside of each of those asset classes, there's different strategies. So with houses, you can buy and hold a property. That's the traditional way of buying and holding a property and renting it for 50 years, getting a 30-year mortgage on it. There's also fix and flip, where you can take a property that needs a lot of work, fix it up, buy it at a big discount, fix it up, and then resell it, and make a big profit, like you see on the TV shows. There's other strategies like wholesaling, which means you get a property at a real cheap price, and then you just flip the contract. You sell the contract to another landlord or rehabber who's going to fix it up. So you get it real cheap. You sell that paper for $5,000 to somebody else that still leaves a lot of room in that deal for them. The strategy I focused on was called lease options, and that's where you can actually buy property, a house, a commercial property, a vacant land. You can buy a piece of property with a lease for 5 years with the option to buy it in that time frame. That's called a lease option. There's also...
Go a little bit deeper on how that works.
So let's say there's a house that the family bought it 3 years ago, and they don't have enough equity in it, so they can't just sell it with a realtor because prices have gone up and down, but like there's not much equity in the deal. So let's just say they bought it for $200,000, and now today it's worth maybe $215,000. They owe maybe $190,000. So if you follow the numbers there's about $25,000 maybe in equity there. But if they list it the traditional route, it's going to take 6 months to sell maybe. They're going to have to pay all kinds of realtor commissions. They're going to have to give concessions and pay closing costs. At the end of the day, they're not going to get anything. That equity they thought they had has disappeared, and then they have to fix the house up, and they have to paint all the walls, take all the. It's just a hassle, but they don't want to be landlords either, so they don't want to just rent their property out. So an investor like me comes and says, "Hey, what if I just start making your mortgage payments for you? I'll lease the property from you for whatever your mortgage payments are. Let's say the mortgage payments are $1,500 a month. And then I'll have an option to buy the property sometime in the next 5 years for whatever it's worth today, $200,000, and or something like that. So I'm going to lease it from you. I'll cover your mortgage payment, and also have the option to buy it sometime in the next 5 years for a predetermined price." They said, "Great, let's do it." And I also tell them I'll be responsible for the day-to-day maintenance and repairs. So we're never going to call you to fix something up.
So off their plate entirely.
Yeah.
And for clarity, the purchase price, is that at market, above market, below market?
It'll be a little bit below market, a little bit.
Got it.
If I'm going to make them a cash offer, I'm going to be way below market. With a lease option, I have more room because I have time. I can offer them more. So it's a very attractive offer to that person, because now a lot of them might have gone through a divorce, a job loss, job transfer, and they can't make another mortgage payment. There's some kind of motivation, there's some kind of situation where they're like, I just need to get out of this, but I don't want to be a landlord, but I don't know how I'm going to make next month's mortgage payment. I don't want to Airbnb it, I don't want to rent it out. Joe Investor comes and says, well, I'll just take care of all that for you. So it's like, that's great. So then what I do then is I'm paying that mortgage payment as a lease payment to the seller of $1,500 a month, but I know I can rent it for $1,900 a month. So I turn around and I sell it to somebody else on a lease option.
And that's the wholesale part.
Sort of, yeah. But I'm going to stay in the middle. Normal traditional wholesaling is you're in and out in a couple months, right? A standard typical lease option, I'm buying it on a lease option and I'm selling it on a lease option. I'm staying in the middle. It's called a sandwich lease option, right? So I'm staying in the middle. I control the property, but I don't own it. That's what a lease option is. It's a good definition. You control without owning it. So I'm controlling this real estate. I'm paying the seller, $1,500 a month that's going to their bank, and I have a contract to buy it, an option to buy it for maybe $190,000 sometime in the next 5 years. But I'm going to turn around and lease option it to somebody who's going to live in it for $1,900 a month, so my cash flow spread's about $400 a month there. And I'm going to give them the option to buy it in 3 years for maybe $220. So I'm buying it for $190 and I'm selling it for $220. So So there's a $30,000 spread. And then I'm also getting $400 a month in cash flow for staying in the middle. Now remember I said, I hope I'm not going way too deep into the details.
I think it's perfect, man. I think that most of the people that subscribe to the show are people that, we have a good chunk that are new and getting off the ground and learning business. Then we have a good chunk that are super successful in business, and strategies to make money or what to do with your money, etc. Real estate is, without question, one of the strongest propositions to create wealth on the planet. And picking a space to play in and understanding the nuances of how to do it are a gap, right? It's like, you have people that have money and they're like, great, invest in real estate. Well, what does that mean? So understanding the nuances of a specific strategy in real estate, I think, is highly applicable.
Well, and this isn't even my favorite strategy.
Well, let's get to your favorite.
It's an amazing strategy.
But what I hear so far is this is a paper game.
Yeah.
So you need the marketing funnel to find the people on both sides, find the deals, and then find the investors to sell to, to contract with. But ultimately, you're contracting the property to lease it with an option to buy it later. And then you were finding somebody else that also wants that same proposition to lease the property with the ability to buy it later.
At a little higher price.
At a little higher price. But it's all on paper, right? You have a contract, and then you create a new contract with them and create the spread.
Yeah.
And my assumption here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is that the motivation of the other party is that they potentially need a place to live and can't just get a traditional mortgage in the moment. Credit is bad, whatever. Don't have a down payment.
They're self-employed.
Don't have a down payment. So
they have tax liens.
Let's get there.
All right.
And they can then get into the property, live there. It's a little bit of a premium on a monthly basis. But they have the opportunity to buy a house, and they couldn't otherwise buy it.
They get to lock in a good price. It's a fair price. It gives them time to rebuild their credit. I bought my own personal house that we're in now through a lease option, and I'll talk about that.
There we go.
But this is why I love creative financing, because there's a lot of people out there that make a lot of money, but they don't have really good credit. It doesn't matter, let's say there's a $500,000 house. If you're self-employed and you have some bankruptcy in the 5 years in the past, and you're trying to reduce your income to pay less in taxes, the banks, it's so ridiculous. You could have the cash in the bank to pay for that house with cash, but a bank still won't lend you the money because there's all these hoops you have to jump through. So there's a lot of people out there who are self-employed, maybe they have good reasons for bad credit in a certain sense, and they just can't get a mortgage right now if they wanted to. I call them penalty box buyers, and they just need a little bit of time. And I was in that situation. So, they're good people. They make a lot of money. They just don't want to have to rent a property for a couple years, fix their credit, or do whatever they need to do, get the thousands of reams of papers for the banks. They need some time. They don't want to have to rent a property, and then move again in a year or two when they can finally get a good mortgage and buy a house. Or maybe like, I don't know if I want to buy this property or not. I just want the option to buy it. And so then they can live there for a couple years and then decide, you know what, we don't want this property. We're not going to exercise our option. And then they can leave.
Great.
So my favorite strategy, before I talk about my woes, is flipping vacant land. Right now, I just love doing that because, again, I wanted something that I could do with my boys. And I found it difficult to train, a 14-year-old kid on how to talk to sellers, how to negotiate prices, how to negotiate on the phone with the seller, which is really important for house deals, how to understand ARVs, after repair values, how to estimate repairs. There's just a lot of complicated things in houses, right?
Joe, it is difficult to train a human on how to do those things.
Much less a 14-year-old kid.
14-year-old, yes.
Right. So then I saw, I heard some students of mine that were doing vacant land deals with some other friends of mine who teach this stuff. And I thought, this is fascinating. So vacant land, with a seller who owns vacant land, they don't have any emotional attachment to that property. They bought it 10, 15 years ago. Their husband bought it, and they've never been out there, maybe once or twice. They just don't care. It's much more transactional, much less emotional.
Right.
So I thought...
It's an investment versus a residence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they didn't put hundreds of thousands of dollars into that house. They bought a piece of dirt for $5,000, $10,000 15 years ago. And they're tired of it. They just want the money back. And so we go in and we do some direct mail marketing. It's very simple. We make 30 offers at 35 cents on the dollar, and we know our numbers. We get 1 out of every 20 to 25 accepted. It's a numbers game. And then we take those deals once we get it under contract, and we hire realtors to sell them for us.
Interesting.
And it's very simple. So we hardly do any talking on the phone to sellers. We just make them. We do a lot of direct mail, make a lot of offers, and we only talk to them after they get our offers.
Got it. Okay, so hold on. How the business models work is always where my brain goes, right?
Yeah.
I think I've conditioned myself for this over many years, but. So you direct mail, presumably you're doing this because the lists that you're getting to find land give you addresses and not necessarily contact info.
Public records is amazing.
Yeah.
It's only in the United States, right? So I can say, I can go in and say, all right, in the state of Florida, which county has had the most sales in the last 90 days of vacant lots, vacant land? And I can see through public records and sites like Zillow and Redfin, there's these 3 or 4 counties, southern Florida, that have sold like 15,000 vacant lots in the last 90 days. Well, that's a good lot I should look at because there's a lot of demand right there, right? Mm-hmm. And so I can say, there's service providers I can go in and say, all right, give me a list of everybody who owns vacant land in that county, who lives outside of that county, that's owned it for over 10 years. I get a list of 20,000 people, right? And then I send them this ugly postcard that costs 52 cents. It basically says, hey, if you want to sell your vacant lot, text or call this 24-hour recorded voicemail. The voicemail says, and this happens all in my software, the voicemail says, hey, thanks for calling. There's a little reference ID on that postcard. Just leave your name and number and that reference ID, and we'll send you an offer in a few days.
All right, I got to get into details here again. So, and I think I know some of these, but why the 24-hour recorded message versus just calling you?
It gets more calls because they know nobody's going to answer.
There's no fear of actually confrontation. Yeah. They just get to get information.
And I don't want them to go to a website because I want their phone number.
So if they call the number, then you can see the inbound call and you've got the number.
Now, I got their numbers. Half of them will send a text, half of them will leave a voicemail. They give me their reference ID, and then we just pull it up. And we can see, okay, we know the size of the property, where it's located, the GPS coordinates, the parcel ID or the APN numbers, all these. And we know who the owner is. We know where the owner lives. And usually, if you're down in Florida, a lot of the owners live up in New York or New England or, So we look at the property, and then we look at comps. Well, what are similar properties selling for of that same size? We've not even called the person back yet. Mm-hmm. And then we look at, okay, well, if we're going to sell this aggressively in 1 or 2 months, if everything else is selling for 20 grand, we're going to list ours for 17 grand. Mm-hmm. And then from that 17 grand, I just subtract my costs. I want to make 10,000 on the deal. I'll pay a realtor 10% commissions. I'll have 1,000 in closing costs, and I'll pay $500 to a photographer. So I subtract all my numbers, and there's my offer. I'll make them an offer. Let's say it's worth 20. I'm going to sell it for 17. I'm going to offer maybe $5,000. All right, I send the owner an offer, and I'll send them back a letter with a one-page contract for $5,000. And I know my numbers, 1 out of every 20 to 25. And I can't promise or guarantee anybody that. It depends on the county. It depends on a lot of things. But some counties, we're 1 out of every 5 that we're sending. Now, usually that means we're offering too much. In some counties, 1 out of every 40 offers get accepted, but that 1 out of 40 is going to be a big $20,000, $30,000 flip or whatever. So it all depends, but we know our numbers in these counties, and we know, all right, if we send 25 offers, we're going to get 1 of them accepted on average. And when a seller is interested in our offer, then we talk to them, and then we start our due diligence period. First thing we do is we'll call realtors who have sold vacant land in that area. And we say, hey, we've got a good deal here. We see that you sold a property here recently to somebody. We have a property that's similar but even better, and we'll pay you 10% commissions, which is very generous in real estate.
Huge.
Commissions.
Versus 3.
Yeah. We'll pay you 10%. And these are also smaller properties, right?
Sure.
So we're selling them for 15 to 20 grand. So we'll pay you, if you can bring us a buyer, we'll pay you 10% commissions, and we'll give you $1,000 bonus if you can close in 30 days. And so now we're getting realtors to do the dispositions for us, to sell the deals for us. And we only pay the realtors if they bring us a buyer. So it's a great, I love it because it's something my kids can do with me. My two older boys now are in college. One's just studying to be a chiropractor, and the other one wants to be get a major in business. But pretty soon, my daughters, who are younger, might be helping me in this if they're interested. But I'm telling you, our average profit on these land deals are about $10,800. I just looked. The last 12 months, our average profit, net profit, is $10,800. We just did a deal where we netted $36,000. So that gets me excited. But you know what gets me more excited is teaching other people on how to do that. Like, I'm not smart enough to figure out how to scale a real estate and deal business and an info business at the same time. So it's either one or the other for me. So I'm spending maybe 5% of my time and energy on the land side of the business. We're still doing a couple deals a month. But I'm spending 95% of my time on the education side of this business, teaching people how to do that stuff. And that's what jazzes me, that gets me most excited, is helping other people do that. And then, here's the cool thing, a lot of times they'll bring me deals.
Who?
My students that I'm teaching.
Oh, right.
They'll bring me deals to partner on with them, to lend money with them on. So it's like, that's the great benefit of teaching, is I'm building a community, and they're doing deals with each other. Some of them are bringing me deals, and everybody wins.
Yeah, well, that's if you want to keep doing deals, right? And so I think, first of all, that's very humble to say you're not smart enough to do both at the same time. You have priorities that prevent you from doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
And one of your priorities is time with family.
Yeah.
And so, like, as you've outlined, right, you're doing deals partially because you want to be able to do it with your kids.
Yeah.
Which is fucking awesome. There are people at the event now, for example, that have monster deal businesses and education businesses. And what you just said, for the people that want to put the time and energy in, that are in hyper go mode all the time, that are building huge things, the info product thing is just a feeder for deals. And we have lots of examples in the real estate education space of people that have functionally cashed out, retired, built tremendous wealth on the back of the education business, using it as a feeder to create a fund or just to do independent deals and just acquire real estate.
Well, that's why I love coming to events like this. Because I'm seeing other people that are at another level above me that are doing more of what I want to do, and I'm trying to network with them and discover, how are you doing that? Like we just heard Pace Morby speak, and that guy's a beast, but he's using his education business. What did he say? He owns like 4,000 doors or something like that now, something crazy. But he's got people that are bringing him. They're not, his students aren't his community. Don't call them students. His community is doing a ton of deals. They're bringing him deals, and they're also bringing him the money. So I forget, there's a schedule something C or whatever. I forget what it's called. But like you can create these funds that are sanctioned by the SEC and all that to raise money, and you can put your students' money, your community's money, into these funds to borrow, to invest into deals. So anyway, I get inspired when I hear other guys talking about that, because I've got so many students. I got a list of at least 30 people right now who are begging me to lend me money on my deals.
Yeah.
Because they want to do it themselves, but it's like, man, you know what's just easier? I'll give my money to Joe and have him invest in the deals.
No question about it.
So then I've got other students that are bringing me deals, and I'm trying to get to a point where I can say, you know what? Let's work together on this, and you got to make sure you do it the right way. But
yes,
everybody can win if you do it that way.
Yeah. Well, so we have had lots of people. I have had lots of conversations like this with people that are big in the info product space, in different spaces. And you definitely have to be careful that you do it the right way.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't done it much yet, at all, really.
Yep.
If somebody brings me a deal, I'll just buy it with my own money.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll use a private, one of my students as a private investor, but only on one deal, I never commingle funds, and I never solicit money. So yeah, but it's a landmine, a field of.
Yeah, certainly when you get to a certain size, the federal government wants to get you.
Oh yeah.
And I don't have a whole lot of respect for a lot of the federal agencies that go after this stuff for a lot of reasons. That's a conversation for another day, I suppose. But I think one of the big takeaways for non-real estate education people, which is, the vast majority of our audience, is to think about how you can have a lead generation mechanism that is highly profitable independently while it's feeding leads to your core business or to another business offer, right? And it's, in simplest terms, it's how do you create a self-liquidating offer? In simplest terms, right? If you want to go up chain and look at the bigger business models, it's how do you create a huge self-liquidating offer that is wildly profitable, but on the back end, you're crushing with the real offer.
Yeah.
And the real estate education space, I think, is one of the most beautiful business models for doing it.
Yeah.
Because the path is actually pretty clear now, right? We've seen a lot of people go down the path and do it.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, it's not simple, but the steps are there and there are people teaching it.
You got to be so careful to do it right. That's a whole nother topic,
Yes.
But
FTC, et cetera.
FTC, SEC, FBI.
Yeah.
Like
all the acronyms.
And it's unfortunate too. You just do a search on Google for real estate fraud, and you'll see tons of people that are just stupid, doing stupid things.
You'll see both people doing stupid things, and you'll also see people that are 100% totally legit that the federal government is pursuing, thinking that maybe they're doing fraud, or that the person leading that 3-letter agency is trying to make an example.
Yeah.
And we have had several clients that are huge name real estate educators that have had FTC suits totally erroneously. Like it's absurd. And unfortunately with federal government, often you are guilty until proven innocent.
Oh, and if you are proven innocent, you still have to pay millions of dollars in legal fees to defend yourself.
Yep. Yeah, it
makes me sick.
It makes me sick too. It's a horrific misappropriation of power. Okay, so I could go down that rabbit hole for quite a while, and I have lots of examples. But for the sake of education of other people here and interest, and not just bitching, let's go back to your business model, and then I want to talk about mistakes, because I think that that's always a good thing to hit on when we have them, and I know that we talked about having some. But first and foremost, let's rewind and snap back real quick. 2009, you had this divergent path of I'm doing deals, but I have a passion to educate, and I can see that the scale on education is going to be faster, easier, more enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
Fast forwarding from 2009 to today, fundamentally, what are the things that you do different today that you didn't understand when you were getting off the ground, or that you had proven to be not as effective, and so you said, I've got to do something different, and this is how I'm doing it now?
Man, I've made so many mistakes. I love creating products and funnels and doing the marketing side of that. I probably have had, for every one success I've had 3 or 4 failures, right? And so I'm constantly learning how to do things better. And then one of the frustrating things about what we do, they say the definition of an entrepreneur is somebody that finds something that works and then stops doing it and does something else, right? So I've had that problem of like shiny object ADD, always looking for some new tactic and trick and stuff like that. And I keep on having to go back and seeing, okay, what has worked for me in the past? And okay, I got to do that again. So, but I'm also like always testing new things. It's kind of weird, but like I love the game because the market shifts, and products have a shelf life. Your ads have a shelf life. There's, challenges may be really hot right now, but that is a shelf life. It doesn't work now as well now as it used to. Webinars may not work well now as they used to, but they also go and they come back. So it's important to be a student of the game. I'm always looking at what are other people doing and how can I model success, because success leaves clues. If you see, somebody talking about the free plus shipping book funnel, well, maybe I could do that for a little bit. It seemed like 5-10 years ago, everybody was doing it and then it stopped working and now nobody's doing it. But now I see a few people starting to do it again. So you got to be a student of the game to succeed, and you got to see if you can start watching the trends and get ahead of them. Try to jump on the wave as it's riding up, ride it up for about a year or two, and then jump off. When everybody is going high ticket, maybe you can go low ticket, right? Seems like everybody and their grandmother is doing a Facebook ad to a VSL to a coaching application strategy call, right? And it's just getting really, really hard to make that work.
To a high ticket sale.
To a high ticket sale,
Yeah,
$5,000-$10,000.
Right, and by the way, the reason that people are doing that largely is because it's easier to make ads work. So if your offer is $10,000, you can spend a lot in your ads to make that work. If you're trying to drive ads to sell a $50 product, you better have your ads really dialed.
Right. And so a lot of people are doing that because the ads do work until Facebook shuts you down.
Right.
And then, like, oh, I just talked to a guy, you probably know him down there, who's facing that right now. It's for the last 90 days, his Facebook ad account has been shut down, and he's crapping his pants because he doesn't know what to do. How am I going to, he was averaging, I don't want to say any numbers, but like significant numbers. And now he's not. So like, you can't just be relying on one channel for leads. You need to go organic and paid. When you're doing paid, you need to be on Facebook and YouTube and, Instagram and the other different channels. Affiliates is really, really important. So anyway, I think if I've had any success, and one of the big reasons why I feel like I'm still sticking around doing this for so long, which has been now 13 years, is I'm always studying other successful people and kind of what they're doing. When I see a new trend coming in, I want to learn how, and then is there a way I could not copy them, right? But is there a way I could model them? So I'm always looking in other industries too, not just in real estate. Is there a way I can model what they're doing and fit it into what I'm selling? And so I love doing that, being a student of the game. But then also, when I'm making a lot of money, not sitting on my laurels and just thinking, okay, I've got this figured out, because these things have a shelf life. And you have to always be nimble and be able to adjust and change. Not change what you're selling, but change the way that you are selling, if that makes sense.
Okay. I want to get this one out because we talked about it before we started recording. Let's talk about a big fuck up.
Yeah.
What's a big mistake you've made? You mentioned just now that for every success, there were probably 3 or 4 failures leading up to it. Give me an example of a mistake you've made, and I guess like what the learning lesson was, or if there was a positive outcome, or just a mistake, and where you went from there.
I made a lot of them. My biggest one, there was a period of time when I was making a lot of money, and I had a lot of losses from the 2008 crash, right? And I started making a lot of money, and I ran out of my deductions from my losses. And we also have adopted 4 kids, so I got a lot of adoption tax credits.
How does that work? What do you get for adoption tax credits?
I think it's a 10 to 15 grand per child.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to adopt 100 kids this year.
That's a dollar for dollar credit. So in other words, if you owe $10,000 in taxes,
comes off your AGI.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't come off your income. It comes off of the taxes that you're owed.
Oh,
that
got
you
it.
owe.
Oh, got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if your AGI was $100,000,
yes,
and you were in a 30% tax bracket, you would owe 30. So if you adopted 3 kids, at 10 grand per, then it would wipe it away.
It's a bargain. I hope that's the way it works, because I don't know, but that's kind of what I was trying. Anyway, so I started making a lot of money, and I ran out of my deductions, and all of a sudden, you do what everybody does. You file some extensions. I kept my receipts in a shoebox, and I would give my bank statements to my accountant at the end of the year.
I hate where we're going here.
After filing the 2 or 3 extensions, and do my taxes, and then what is this? I owed $30,000.
Sure.
And I don't have that money. Like, crap. All right, so I got to sell a bunch of things, right? And I go into extra freak out mode trying to sell, and I pay off my old taxes. Well, guess what's due after I filed my second extension again?
Presumably more.
More taxes, and I owe more because I've been making more money to pay off those old taxes. So now I got another tax bill of like $50,000, $60,000. And so it's embarrassing to talk about, but like I kept on digging myself into a bigger and bigger hole.
Sure.
And hiding my head in the sand, thinking, I'll just make more money. And knowing the real problem for me was I'm not good with managing my numbers. And I heard somebody say one time, if you don't know your numbers, you don't have a real business. And I didn't know my numbers. I could give you a P&L statement at the end of the year when I did my taxes that when I talked to my bookkeeper once a year. But I couldn't tell you where I was at today. And I was your checkbook business owner where I would look to see how much was in my bank account, and that's what I knew I could spend. And so I saw 10 grand in there. I thought, oh great, I can spend 10 grand on ads or whatever. And I was always like reinvesting my money, not spending it stupid, I guess, but just reinvesting it into the business, into more ads, trying to make more money.
Sure.
Somebody recommended this book, Profit First. I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. So
who is that?
Mike McCallowitz wrote the book.
Right. Yeah.
But somebody recommended it to me.
Yes.
And so I read half of it. That's cool. Put it on the shelf. And then so that just kept on getting worse and worse, Brad, over like 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
And this is also when I'm the guru. And I'm kind of becoming well known, and I am humiliated, and I'm getting these tax, like the IRS sends you these envelopes. Anytime you get a thick envelope from the IRS, that's not good.
There is no good envelope from the IRS.
No. And then I started getting letters from these tax collection companies, like these companies that try to, get you to pay them a bunch of money to get rid of your tax problems. And, I'm trying to protect my wife from this, not letting her know how bad the problem really is. And that's making it worse because my tax problem is getting worse and worse, and my wife doesn't know. So anyway, all of a sudden I owe like a couple $100,000 to the IRS. And so I start paying off my old taxes. I get on an installment plan. I start paying off my old taxes, but I'm not keeping up with my current taxes. So it just keeps on, and then penalties, interest, fees, and it gets ugly fast, right? And I'm making more money trying to pay off my old taxes, but you're also paying more in taxes on that new money that you're making. And,
sure.
So I had okay, so we talked about lease options, right?
Yep.
My wife and I and our 4 kids, we went to Europe for 3 months. And I was living the Instagram lifestyle. Like, look, I'm doing deals while traveling around Europe, and we were.
Yep.
But my numbers were a wreck. Like, I was making money, right? But really my financial picture was not good because I wasn't setting aside money for my taxes. And so all of a sudden I'm starting to get little liens and judgments attached to my rental properties.
Oh.
Right? And so I'm telling my wife, okay, we're going to go, when we get back to the States, we'll buy a nice house. Because we've been moving a lot. And then all of a sudden we get back to the United States, and I can't get a mortgage because I have these tax liens on my credit, right? And like, oh crap, this isn't good. And then I get this, it ballooned up to $520,000 was what I owed the IRS. And it's like, I can't get a mortgage, and we don't want to rent a property while I pay off the tax stuff, then move again a year or 2 later. So we had a camper, and we lived in this camper for like 6 months from like July to December. It was starting to get cold in St. Louis. And my wife, our dog, and our 4 kids in a camper, like maybe 52 feet long.
Damn.
Trying to find a place to live. So we were homeless,
Yeah.
right? Pretty much. And I couldn't get a mortgage to buy a house. So I did what I teach. I teach lease options. So I became that penalty box buyer, right? Making a lot of money. So I started contacting owners who had properties listed for rent. And this is, again, I'm so humiliated and embarrassed because I'm the guru making all the money, but I can't even get a mortgage to buy a house. And the more I tell this story too, by the way, there's so many people that come to me, people that you and I know, they're like, I'm in the same boat. It's either like, oh man, you think that's bad, I owe $2 million to the IRS,
Right.
or I thought I was bad, I only owe $300,000 to the IRS, and you owed $500, but you've
Yep.
given me hope that I can get this thing taken care of. All right, so
Yep.
we can't get a mortgage And so I find this guy, there's this house, it's a long story, but I'll keep it short. I text him and I say, hey, can we rent your house for a few years and then buy it? He's like, yeah, go check it out. It's a gorgeous house. I won't go into the numbers, but we put down about 20% option deposit onto this house, which means if you don't buy the house in 3 years, we had a 3-year lease option agreement, you forfeit that 20% you put down, which was over $100,000.
Which is the incentive for the person that's doing it.
Yeah. And so now, okay, I got fire under my butt. I'm going to figure this tax thing out. I got 3 years to pay this tax bill off so I can get a good mortgage. Well, year 2 and month 10, I'm not there. And I'm freaking out. I call the owner of the property up and I say, this is my situation. Can we convert this to owner financing? So instead of me leasing it from him, and he owned the house free and clear. Instead of leasing it from him, can we do owner financing? Give me 2 more years. And he said, yeah, sure, no problem.
Meaning that, for those that don't know, that now the payments are going towards acquisition of the house.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's now the bank instead of the landlord. But
During
that entire 5 years, I never called him once to fix anything. We took all the responsibility to fix the stuff. We poured a couple $100,000 into the house because I knew I was going to buy this thing. I was determined we were not going to move. So then the IRS finds out that now I put a deed, I'm on the deed to this property now.
Because you went to seller financing?
Yes. So guess what the IRS did?
Something shitty.
Well, the IRS decided to attach a lien on that house.
Oh.
So guess what? The seller now has a lien judgment on his property that he kind of still owns. And if I decide I can't buy it, the IRS doesn't have to vacate that lien. That lien's attached to that house until whatever. So I knew the owner was not going to be happy about this. It was a $520,000 lien on this property. So I call the owner up and I tell him, listen, I'm sorry, this is what's going on. I knew from past mistakes that I had done, the worst thing I could do right now is hide my head in the sand and ignore the problem and hope that he doesn't find out, right? I've done a lot of deals that have gone south, but I've always paid my private investors back, right? Any deal that I've borrowed private money, I've always paid all my private investors back. And it may have taken me a long time, but I did. So I understood that open communication, honesty, and integrity is always do that. And so he appreciated the fact that I told him what my issues were. Then shortly after that, about the same time, I got a call from an IRS agent. And his last name was Friend, by the way. And nice guy, super nice guy, but he says, Joe, you need to come into my office, today. And I go there and you go through tons of security. You get into this room and nice guy, but he I don't want to say anything bad. All right, anyway, he says, Joe, do you realize, and I'm in there shaking, trying not to cry. It's like, do you realize how close you are to jail? I could send you to jail. I could take away your house, kick your wife and kids out on the street, make you homeless, take everything you own. You've got to get this taken care of and fixed. And I was like, okay, I need help. How? How do I do this? Because I was trying to make payments. So anyways, he said, first thing you need to do, stop worrying about your old taxes and just get current on your current taxes. After you're current on your current taxes, then we'll put you up on an installment plan for your previous taxes. Now, keep in mind too, I can't negotiate a settlement with the IRS. I'm living in $1 million house. I've got some nice cars that are paid off free and clear. And I'm not living on the streets in a little 2-bedroom shack.
Right.
I can't negotiate hardship.
The IRS is not sympathetic for you.
No.
Yeah.
So I remembered that book, Profit First. And I said, I need to start implementing this profit first. So I hired an executive assistant as a bookkeeper / operations manager. And I said, your number one job is to implement profit first, take the money away from me, you just manage it all, and get me current on my current taxes, and then set me up on an aggressive pay plan to pay off my old taxes. So the IRS gave me 5 years. I got current on my current taxes within 6 months. And I paid off all of my old taxes in about a year and a half, or about a year and a half or so. And Profit First, it's phenomenal, my favorite business book, because it's like most of us look at revenue minus expenses equals profit. He reverses it and says revenue minus profit equals expenses. And if you do that, your business will always be profitable. So every dollar that came in, my assistant took out 10%, 15% for current taxes, and then eventually 15% for old taxes, and then my salary. I can't take any profit until I pay my taxes off. And then whatever is left is expenses. So I went from spending, I don't know, whatever, 100 grand a month on business operating expenses to maybe 50,000 a month on OpEx. And I just got super aggressive with paying off, getting current on my current taxes. So when I finally got current on my current taxes, state, federal, I put myself on payroll, started being more disciplined and budgeted with, this may sound like a no-brainer, like some of you guys listening are like, duh, of course, like, what are you, an idiot? Yeah, I was. I was a big idiot. And so I'm also against the clock now because I got to get these liens off of my credit so I can get a mortgage before my time expires
timeline runs out,
with the seller. I had so much put into the property. It's our dream forever house. We don't want to ever move.
But you took that time, paid it all down,
Yes.
got rid of things.
Got the IRS to remove the liens, and then got a traditional 30-year mortgage.
Love it.
Right before interest rates started going up.
Oh, amazing.
So I got a 3.2% interest rate on this 30-year. Beautiful house. It's incredible. And finally could breathe.
Yeah.
And
I love it. Well, look, there are a bunch of lessons there. I want to highlight a couple for people. The first is be fucking real with yourself.
Yeah.
And when you don't know something, recognize that.
Yeah.
And every single one of us is, even the most self-aware, are totally susceptible to running a narrative internally that isn't totally accurate. And you've just been telling yourself some shit that you got to stop. You have to reevaluate specifically the things that you think are true. Your core beliefs that you hold, you have to reevaluate. And you have to ask your friends or mentors or somebody, does this make sense? That's the only way that you can see some of those things. The second is that
that's a really good point.
It's just the fact, right?
I was in a small little mastermind group, and I finally admitted to these guys. I mean, these guys in this group were my peers. And when I told them the problems I was having that I thought nobody else could relate to, nobody knew about, it was like I was humiliated and embarrassed. And they came around me and like put their arms around me and said, Joe, you're not alone. We've all faced things like this before. We're going to help you get through this.
Yep.
And it makes me want to cry. Like, these guys came to my help.
Yeah.
They didn't give me any handouts.
Yeah.
But they helped me along this path.
Well, that was the second thing I was going to say. Is
Okay.
that everybody goes through this shit. And the number of people that are not, I don't even know that there is a really well-run business in the world. I think we all have this, specifically as kids, we have this illusion that businesses are run well. And the fact of the matter is, the deeper you get into business, the more clear it is that if you look under the hood, it is fucked up and messy in there.
Yeah.
With almost all businesses.
Yeah.
And taxes and numbers are a really easy thing for the visionary entrepreneur to just omit. And even with us, with Easy Pay Direct, in a financial space where we are a numbers company, right? And we're managing other people's numbers. We have to be great at numbers. There's still areas where it's a question of focus and where you put your effort and energy. But the big takeaway, I think, for a lot of people is fucking pay attention to taxes.
Also, like, if you're not good at the numbers, get somebody who is,
Yeah.
right? You don't think you can, they say, don't ask how, ask who. And Tom Kroll has this thing where you don't try to fix your weaknesses, you outsource them. And I realize that I need to get smarter people around me that can take care of those things. And that way I can do what I'm doing best. What my genius zone is marketing and making offers and teaching. I love doing that. I realize now the importance of the numbers. And so like now it's all really, really good.
Yep.
And the stress that I don't have anymore of worrying about if that stuff's being taken care of. I love, this sounds really weird and obnoxious, but I love when my assistant tells me, hey, we just sent a $25,000 payment to the IRS or whatever. We just paid your state taxes. All my employees are on payroll. I don't play the W-9 game. I just put them all on payroll. I don't want to mess with the government. I don't want to mess with them because the IRS is the world's largest, most aggressive debt collector. They can take everything from you and they can send you to jail. It doesn't matter. And when you read these stories of celebrities in the news that are convicted of tax fraud and evasion, they're good at sports and acting and movies. They're not good at that, but they didn't have the people with them helping them.
Well, and I would be willing to bet that 95% or more of the people that are convicted of tax evasion were not doing it maliciously.
No.
And were just unaware.
No. And here's the thing, it's getting worse because of AI. The IRS is ramping up their auditing.
Lovely.
And they're going to be starting to implement AI to go into people's tax returns and their businesses and everything about them. And they're going to learn who are the best type of people to audit or go deeper into. And you're going to see, and especially with the rise of online income and e-commerce and Bitcoin and crypto and real estate, like there's a lot more people starting their own agencies, working from home businesses, Ubers, and all of this, like this economy is changing. There's a lot of people out there that are not paying attention to this issue or thinking, I'll just make my way, I'll make more money to get myself out of it. Mm-hmm. Everybody who's listening to this, who's not read that book, Profit First, needs to pick it up and just start implementing because it's not that complicated. And if you're not good at those numbers, doing that kind of stuff, then hire somebody who is.
Yeah. Well, we'll put that in the show notes. And I think that the kind of piggybacking on that, the only way that make more money is the solution is if you are growing at a really aggressive pace. And even when you're there, that's still a short-term solution. But you have to be growing at an accelerated pace for make more money to solve a temporary tax problem, meaning that you can outpace the tax problem. But got to be aware of it. Well, I appreciate you sharing the story, man.
Yeah,
I think that's helpful for a lot of people.
I sure hope so because I don't enjoy sharing it. I'm hoping it helps somebody.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you carving out time, man.
Thank you, Brad.
If people want to find out about you or about real estate investing, where do you want to point them?
YouTube channel. If you just go to YouTube, just search for Joe McCall. I have a podcast I've been doing for 12 years now called the Real Estate Investing Mastery Podcast. I interview people there. I also do a lot of my own self-reflection. While I'm driving, I'll have my phone, and I call it REI in your car.
Nice.
I'll do these episodes where I just talk about things going on in real estate. I love doing YouTube videos and podcasts, creating content. I think that's probably the best way for people to find me.
Dig it. Well, hopefully I'll be on that show sometime.
I sent you a link.
Oh, beautiful.
We'll get it scheduled. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, we'll talk about my own real estate woes.
Yeah.
And successes. We've had some really good ones in the last several years, and I've had some catastrophic issues in the past.
Man, I tell you, if we could summarize this too, I would say never take business advice from somebody that hasn't failed and rebounded up, right? Because there's so many people in the real estate world who got in after 2012 at the bottom of the market. So for the last 11 years, it's been on a tear, and everything they touch turns to gold. And there's a lot of people out there that are teaching this stuff, and they don't know what they don't know.
Yep.
And you've got to be careful who you're getting your advice from. And it's important, even in the marketing world. You know, it's been like, it's so easy to make money right now, online, in real estate. People have forgotten what can happen and what will happen again in the future. And so it's important. I love talking about these mistakes because I know they're going to help people. They're going to help somebody who's listening, and they're going to say, oh yeah, I don't know what that's like, but I don't want to make the same mistakes that Joe and Brad have made in the past. So if you're getting advice from somebody, make sure it's from somebody that has failed and bounced back. and not just from somebody that's always had success, because everybody, if you've been in the business long enough, you're going to experience failure and setback. It happens to everybody. And if it hasn't happened yet, it will. Does that make sense? That's so true.
Absolutely. Yeah. Joe, appreciate the time.
Yeah,
man.
Brad. Thank you, man.
Love it. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed doing it. I need your help. There are 3 places you can find Beyond a Million. The podcast itself, beyondamillion.com, which has some cool free resources, including a free course. And we finally launched the Beyond a Million YouTube channel. I would love it if you would go there and subscribe. And if you don't want to, you still would probably enjoy seeing the visual content. Check it out, youtube.com/@Beyond a Million.